Welcome to the Level Up Life podcast. I'm your host, Scottie Hobbs, where we are here to remind you that your family is your most important work on earth, help you feel better, and learn how to make more income for your family. I'm here with my good friend and mentor, Jordan Kemper. He's a husband and father to two young children. He dropped out of the path to medical school when a former doctor showed him another path. He's created an incredible life and business over the past 18 years and gives valuable insight on what it takes to become successful in any endeavor. He's got a deep love for Jesus and will help you align with what is most important in your life. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, first off, Scottie, thank you for having me. I'm gonna enjoy this conversation together. I live in Tampa, Florida. I'm married. I've got two kids. We have a 5-year-old and then one that was just born. So at the time of this recording, man, my son Ko is 6 weeks old. So the bag's under my eyes. Some of you parents would probably relate to. But I have been an entrepreneur for 18 years. Ironically, I was in college to become a medical doctor. I turned down medical school when I was 22 years old to pursue entrepreneurship. And you're like, why would you do that? Ironically, a doctor came into my life and he was trying to get out of medicine. I was trying to get into medicine. And so he introduced me to my first business in the direct sales industry. And that was 18 years ago. So I would call myself a serial entrepreneur. I've built multiple direct sales businesses. I've become an investor. Had the privilege of speaking. I wrote a book. I love speaking to sales groups, to churches, and then I also started a consulting company a few years back, where I've been able to advise companies on ways to increase revenue and find savings opportunities as well. So I think the easiest way to say what I do is every day is some sort of an entrepreneurial venture, Scottie. But I love the excitement of each new day because you don't know what it will bring. And that's been my life these last 18 years.
That's beautiful. And congrats once again on the new baby.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the most beautiful thing. I always try to remind people on here that their family is the most important work. So I love seeing you as a father and as a husband to your wife, Kristen.
Yeah, that's right. I'm with you on that.
So talk to me a little bit, 18 years in entrepreneur space. I find it interesting that it was a doctor that was guiding you out of that path or mentoring you in a way like that. But I want to, before we dig too far into that, I know that you played college basketball and there's some lessons that you can learn through sports. So talk to me about your experience in college basketball.
Yeah, so I was recruited to Wheaton College to play basketball. So I did play 4 years of college basketball, but I also played 2 years of college football. And both of those experiences were wildly different. And a reason I would say they were wildly different was because the coach of each program was wildly different. And it's so interesting because the dichotomy between the two was where so many lessons were learned. So let me share kind of one just like really easy lesson that I learned. The basketball coach, there were about 15 of us on the team, give or take. And the basketball coach kind of made us compete against each other. It was almost like you were competing for those 5 spots to play. So you had first string, second string, third string. And it was almost like your identity was which one of those strings you were on. And so rather than getting us to work cohesively as a team of 15, it was almost like second string is against first string. And if somebody else is playing, they're taking your time. And so it became very competitive to where there was almost like a toxicity in the team where we were all competing for these minutes of playing. Now, my football team, I can tell you that the number one best player on the team was equally as important as the number 99 guy on the depth chart. I mean, my football coach, his ability to make us all feel like we were cohesively working together to elevate the team and put the team in the best position to win was starkly different. And so, interestingly enough, I loved both. And I loved all of the lessons that came from sports. But I remember leaving Wheaton College. And I remember thinking about the hard lessons I learned from basketball. I was 6'2", which any of you basketball fans would know that a 6'2" white guy is like, it's kind of undersized when it comes to basketball. And so I was kind of like too big to be a guard, but too small to be a forward. And so my coach called me a tweener. And that was like this 2.5. And I thought, man, what a great thing. I am like a big guard and a small forward, but like I've got the best of both worlds. Well, coach kind of saw it as a negative. And so for whatever reason, he didn't believe in me. And so he didn't give me any opportunity to play, regardless of how I performed. How many of you feel like that sometimes? It's like, no matter how hard I work, maybe you perform in your job and you're just hoping your boss just gives you some sort of promotion. If you just show up and do a little bit better, you're going to kind of keep moving up the corporate ladder. It's like, I just felt like I was showing up at a level to where I deserved the opportunity to showcase more. Well, unfortunately, that control wasn't something that I had. It was up to the coach. And the coach told me, I'm so sorry, Jordan, but I don't believe in you. If you're playing, that means somebody else isn't. And I believe in those other players more than I believe in you. That was a tough pill to swallow for 3.5 years, you know? And so fast forward to my senior year, we had a bunch of guys graduate, some guys transfer, one guy got hurt. And so coach pretty much didn't have a choice but to play me. And so I came into my senior year and I was ready. I was in the best physical shape of my life. I was in the best mental space of my life. I knew that this was my last year. I knew that time was never going to get this. I was never going to get this opportunity back. So I wanted to put myself in the best position to win if the opportunity presented itself. And so I ended up having a great senior season. I led our team in almost all the statistical categories. And ironically, I led the conference in rebounds at 6'2".
Wow.
And fast forward to the end of the season, my coach had a one-on-one meeting with me to kind of have a year in review. And he said to me, he said, Kemps, I'm really sorry. And I said, why are you sorry, coach? And he said, you showed me just how talented you were, and you surprised me in every way. For you at 6'2" to lead not just our team, but the entire conference in rebounds was remarkable. And if I could go back to the beginning of your time here, I would have given you a shot sooner. And the reason I share that story, Scottie, is because fast forward, that's part of the reason I decided to become an entrepreneur. I decided to put myself in a situation where I got to control what would or wouldn't happen in my life. I wanted to be able to control my income. I wanted to be able to control my schedule, my time, who I chose to work with. I did not want another situation where somebody else could put their limiting beliefs on me and decide what would or wouldn't happen. And so that's part of the reason I got into the direct sales industry. And when I started recruiting people to my organization to partner with me, I said to myself, I will never do to you what was done to me. I'm going to instill confidence and belief. I'm going to empower you to be the best version of yourself, and you get to decide what you will or won't become with this business model. And that's why I think people say, well, do you have regrets from college? No, I don't. I'm actually thankful for that experience, because had I not gone through that challenging experience, that storm in my life, I probably wouldn't have had the perspective that I did coming out of college. And so that was a big reason I said no to med school and yes to entrepreneurship, because I wanted to have the freedom that comes with being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So talk to it like there might be someone out there who's like, what does that freedom feel like? Like what is that like?
That freedom feels like the last 6 weeks with my son being born, I haven't had to work. I, I, it's not that I don't enjoy work. It's not that I don't want to work. It's that I haven't had the need to work.
Mhm.
And, let me say this. When we talk about money, money is a very emotional thing. Um, I believe as a child of God that everything I have is from Him. So, what I mean by that is I deserve none of the credit for what I have done. My ability to speak, the mind that I have, my gift of communication, anything that I have, gifts, skills, abilities, it all comes from my Creator. So I believe that I am a steward, not a manager, a steward of what I have. And it's not mine because I don't owe it. I don't own it, right?
Mhm.
So as I think about what that means, um, I want to steward the gifts and abilities that I have, and I want to do good things with them, right? So as I think about whatever career choice someone makes, I would encourage you to think about that question. What is the vision that you have for your journey? What is it that you ultimately want to accomplish? Is it the nicer house? Is it the more cars? Is it the financial security? All of those things are okay. I'm not saying that those things are bad, but I will tell you right now, as somebody who has achieved those things, none of those things bring you peace. Ultimately, what brings peace is service to others. What brings peace are the things that you can't monetize. It's love, it's joy, it's service to others. These things can't necessarily be quantified with an ROI. And so, part of the reason I chose the entrepreneurial journey was because I wanted to be able to have the freedom to do those things. I wanted to be prosperous so that I could then help those in need. I wanted to have freedom and flexibility in my schedule so that I could be a present father, a good husband, and somebody that could serve my community and those around me. And so, again, to me, it was like the end goal wasn't titles or prestige or glory. To me, the goal was I need to have a surplus of time and money so that it can help me fulfill what my ultimate goal is, which is service to others. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship. There's never been a situation where I'm like, sorry, I can't do that. My boss won't let me off. I don't have enough time off, or, my PTO's up for the year. It's like, no, again, God calls some people to that. I'm not saying that God doesn't call people to that, but for me, I wanted to have the freedom and flexibility that comes with entrepreneurship so that I could fulfill that greater purpose and mission in my life.
We need to clip that. That was good. Jordan, that's why I like you, my man. We're so similar in that aspect. When we had to make some transitions recently, the number one question that Gabby and I, like, we silenced the noise of social media and everybody saying, you should do this, you should do that. It was like, what do we want our life to look like?
Mm,
And the most important thing to me was I want to make sure, because for 14 and a half years, I've been a stay-at-home dad, present husband, taking my wife on dates every Thursday. I mean, right after this podcast, I'm driving an hour and a half up near Jackson Hole to watch my kid play football. And so the most important thing to me was because we're building this home that we're in right now, the question was, if we're going to keep this home, can we still live that life where I'm a present father and husband and I'm at home?
mm,
And so that was the most important thing to us. And part of my vision as I write it out, um, is that, like, one thing I'm working on, just to share this with you, is I want to slow down my life a little bit. I don't know if you're like this, maybe you're not, but I'm like, with my kids sometimes, or with my wife, I'm like, oh, I got to get on this podcast 5 minutes, and I'll rush that conversation with them. And my vision as I continue to build my business is to be someone that's extremely present and slow paced in my life. Like I've been living the life that you're talking about of being able to serve. Like I had all my cousins over yesterday. We cooked for them and they swam and played pickleball and shot bows and arrows and all that fun stuff. And we just created an incredible day for them that I felt like. That's the kind of, like, I love doing that, but I also want to have that freedom of mind of not being rushed through things.
yeah, well, you're talking to the choir there, man. Jefferson Bethke wrote a book called To Hell with the Hustle. I love that.
Yeah.
Uh, there's another book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. I read that. The reason I read all of these books is because I'm a hustler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I need to hear it in different ways, and I need to hear it repetitively, that like you need to slow down. And it was interesting. I just got off a phone call before this podcast, and a guy that I know felt like the Lord told him to give up a $50 million business. I'm not even joking. I'm like, wait, you sold the 50 million? He's like, no, 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 I gave it away. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, so to me, it's like you get to a level of surrender to where it's like, who really sustains, who really provides for you. And I don't know, I was just so encouraged by the last phone call that I had. And it's like, I feel like I have these conversations with people like him and people like yourself. And it's like, you just get this little manna, you just get this little bread from heaven to where it's like, it just keeps moving you in the right direction. It keeps reminding you of what matters most. And along the lines of what you said, I would encourage all the listeners to do this. It's kind of like you can prioritize your schedule or you can schedule your priorities. And I think most of us, we have a calendar. And so it's like little militant robots. We have to stick to what the calendar tells us to do because it's in the calendar. That's what we do, stick to the calendar. But like, how many of us actually put our priorities into the calendar? I'm not sticking to the calendar because the calendar just says to stick to it. I want to actually shift and make sure that my calendar is a representation of what my priorities are. So, for example, I heard you just say every Thursday night you go on a date with your wife. My guess is that's in your calendar.
Yeah.
Because quality marriage is a priority to you, right? A date with your daughter, priority to you. Like, these things are scheduled. So little things that I do, workouts are typically scheduled. Time with my children in the morning is scheduled. About 5:30 to 8:30 every day is kind of like sacred time for me. I don't work during those hours because that's like time with my family. We've got couch time, playtime, dinner time, go for a walk. It's like you start figuring out like what are the things that matter most. And I'm in this season with young kids. Everybody keeps telling me it's going to go by so fast. And everybody wishes that they could go back to when their kids were young. Well, guess what? I am in that season that everybody wishes they could go back to. And I am trying, and it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. I am trying to make sure that I am so present in this moment and I'm not so fixated on what's to come or what I'm building or what accolades and titles and how much security I have from the bank account. It's like, no, it's okay to grow. It's okay to move in that direction, but be present in this moment because no amount of money is going to get me back to this moment. This is the moment. And I think we as humans have to just keep practicing this mindset of like what matters most and am I prioritizing those things in my schedule? And if we can do that and we can make our work schedule and the things that we're pursuing help to supporting what our priorities are, that's how we design that life that we love.
Beautiful. What a good reminder. You were just saying that right before I came into this podcast, I stopped. My daughter was sitting out on the deck and I sat with her for 5 minutes and she'll be 19 the end of this year. And I'm just like, where did this time go? This is crazy. So I'm going to remind you again and just say congratulations for making that a priority and focusing on that at this age. That's beautiful.
Well, thank you. It's funny, like, as we think of like family rhythms, the conversation Krista and I just had today that I think might be worthwhile to people is like, as adults, if you were to think back to when you were like between 5 and 15, all right, like, you know what I mean? Like before 5, you probably don't remember much. And after 15, you're kind of like, you know what I mean, with your friends, kind of preparing for adulthood. But like that 5 to 15 gap, there's like 10 years there where like quintessential childhood. What do you remember most from your childhood? I can honestly say it was the family trips. It was the vacations because they were outside of the normal habits that we had as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And so like didn't need to be elaborate. It could just be a week in Wisconsin, you know, at a little rental cabin where we went fishing for the week. It's like those things are like imprinted on my brain. I can remember those moments that were created by my parents that I remember most. And so as we think about this next 10 years with our kids, dude, we want to create those moments. We want to create those experiences where our kids will remember that really quality time that we spent together. I was talking to another successful entrepreneur a couple of days ago. He took his family to Breckenridge for the summer. And I thought, wow, you moved there for the whole summer. He said, yeah, moved there for the summer. And I said, wow. And he said, and next summer we're going to Switzerland. And I said, really? He goes, yeah. I only got 18 summers with my kids, and I want every single one of those summers to be special. And so every summer, it's like the work slows down. And even though his productivity and his capacity for growing his empire is compromised, he knows that what he's doing is he's devoting his time and attention in those summer months to his kids. And not to say that he doesn't do it during the school year, but like he gets exaggerated amount of time with his kids in the summer. And he's picking a fun spot every summer. And I think to myself, man, imagine what it's going to be like to be one of those kids. Um, the firm foundation that they will have, knowing how loved they are by their parents, and the intentional time that mom and dad took to instill values, that dad was able to make less money and put more time into to me. Um, I don't know. That's what I hope my kids would say about me. Yeah, dad could have been more, or dad could have this or could have that, but like I was the priority. And I would hope my wife would say that. I would hope my kids would say that. And ironically, when you're a kingdom builder and you do things for the Lord, it's interesting when we do things His way, how God multiplies our efforts. And He can help us to do more than we can do ourselves. And so, a simple example of that might be I can work for 8 hours and be semi productive, or God can give me the creativity and the strategic relationships. And inside of 1 hour, I can do more than I could do on 8 hours myself. My point is, it's like when you start working with a kingdom mindset, it's not addition, it's multiplication. And that takes faith and that takes surrender. And that's a daily assignment for all of us that I'm still working on, man.
Yeah, I'm taking notes on that. That's Jordan, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. So this podcast was for me. So
I love it.
thank you for sharing that with me. Let's um let's dive in a little bit on like the first year. Let's say someone's like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Like I've been an employee for a long time. I'm ready to have this freedom that Jordan's talking about, or Jordan's friend that's taken the whole summer in Breckenridge, and I want to build something. Tell us about the first year, like maybe your first year or what a first year could look like for somebody.
I think we live in a microwave culture where people think things just happen fast, and that's just not the case. So, as I go back to my first year, 22 years old, no business experience, that first year was rough. I mean, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I made around $900 my first year as an entrepreneur. And that doesn't include my expenses. I'm just telling you, my $900 was like my revenue, meaning into the company. And I remember I got to the end of those first 6 months and I was like, man, I'm not cut out for this. And then the next 12 months, I made around an average of about $1,000 a month. So I made around 12 grand my first, full fiscal year. And there again, thinking like compared to what I would make if I was a doctor, man, these numbers are really small. And I remember I sat down at my mentor's house, who happened to be the doctor I told you about. And after 18 months, I told him, I'm like, I don't know if I'm good at this. I'm like, I'm so frustrated. 10 people start, 10 people quit. Everybody calls this residual income. There's nothing residual about this. This is a nightmare. And I was just so frustrated. And I literally, tears in my eyes at his kitchen table. I remember exactly where I was sitting. I'll never forget what he said. He said, Jordan, if you were 18 months into medical school, how much money would you have made? And I thought to myself, well, Jiminy Christmas, I'd be 80 grand in debt. I will have made no money. I'd still have 2.5 years of school left, and then residency, and then fellowship. I wouldn't even start earning a paycheck until my early 30s. So he said, the reason that doctors get paid what they get paid is because they go through the schooling and they increase their skills. You see, the marketplace pays for value, and what determines your value in the marketplace are your skills. That's why a doctor makes a doctor's salary. And I thought, well, that makes sense. So he said, what skills have you developed relative to your business? And I thought, zero. I'm like a machine gun out there hoping something will get better, but I haven't actually developed any skills. No marketing skills, no people skills, no nothing. I'm just out there hoping. And hope is not a very good strategy, Scottie. It's not a good strategy. So I realized in that moment, I needed to invest. So I started going to some personal development seminars. I started listening to CDs and reading books. Robert Kiyosaki became very critical in my life at that time around personal finance. I attended Danny Johnson, Tony Robbins, Darren Hardy, Eric Worre. I mean, I just started going to all the stuff that I could go to because I wanted to invest in my skills. And I realized from all of that personal development, it all boiled down to one thing: people skills. No matter what business you're in, you will deal with people. So if you can get better at dealing with people, you will make more money. And so I realized in that moment, that's what I needed to work on. And so I got very intentional at that. Well, lo and behold, I went from making 12,000 that first full year to 72,000 the next year. That was a nice jump for a 24-year-old kid, you know? And then the next year I jumped over six figures, and then the numbers kept jumping up from there. Every single year for 9 years straight, I grew in that business. And I actually became one of the fastest growers. I became the number 2 income earner in that company. And everybody wanted to know what was my secret sauce. And I was like, there's no shortcut. You know what I'm saying? There's no shortcut. It was hard work. It was a lot of tears. It was a lot of investing and coaching and seminars and conferences. And I realized that I had become a better version of myself. And so anybody that's thinking about this business, the first thing I would tell you is like, you need to roll your sleeves up and realize it's going to be hard work. But I would encourage you to think of this process. I call it be, find, build. Be, find, build. Be is about becoming, not doing, but becoming. You have to become more. You have to think differently. You have to become positive, become magnetic. You have to become influential. Like, that is a process as we become more. Some authors call it be, do, have, right? We become more. Then we have to find. We have to find leaders. If you think about the term leverage, you can leverage money or you can leverage time. Those are the two things you can leverage. So if we want to leverage time, we need to find partners to work with in this business. And so in order to find leaders, we need to first become more such that we can attract those leaders to ourselves, put ourselves in a position to add value to their life. And then once we find leaders, be, find, build. We build leaders. We become leaders of leaders. And this is what I learned to do really well, Scottie. I started building teams. And I've now built, oh my gosh, my wife and I have now built 3 teams over 18 years to more than 10,000 sales reps. And as I think about the pure multiplication of working with that volume of people, it certainly wasn't something we could have done by ourselves. We were only able to accomplish that because we aligned ourselves with some of the most incredible leaders. Yeah. And our goal was to elevate them, help them become the best leaders they could be. And as we started working with high capacity leaders and attracting high capacity leaders, we became very effective at marketing world-class products. So we started moving hundreds of millions of dollars in world-class products. And I don't care what business you're in, you're paid for volume, right? So if you're a Starbucks, you sell coffee. If you're a Chick-fil-A, you move chicken sandwiches. It's all based on volume. So we became very successful at moving volume. But here's the catch. If only my wife and I were out there slinging products, we wouldn't be able to move that much volume. Yeah. But if you have an army of highly trained, highly motivated, highly skilled entrepreneurs, you can move some volume and it pays really well. And so I hope the listeners are hearing, this has been an 18-year journey for me. It's been a process of learning how to grow myself, how to find leaders, and then continue to lead leaders and help leaders become successful. And then I get to align with some of the most incredible people. And then this is what I've learned. And this is, man, if I could like put a bow around it all, At this season of my life, I've realized I'm 40, I will be 41 on Saturday. I have realized what matters to me most at this season of my life is the company that I keep. It is the people that I get to work with. And this is where I want A players. And what I mean by that is A players want to do legendary things with legendary people. That's what I want. It's all about who I'm doing it with. It's not about the ROI, it's not about the numbers. It's about who do I get to do life with. And I have found that like what gives me the greatest joy and satisfaction is getting to do life and business with people I absolutely love and building those relationships and learning from each other, being there for each other on the good days and the hard days. And as you start to build that, it's like that's the most valuable part. You can't necessarily quantify it. It's like, well, so how much money do you make? It's like, okay, the money's good, but like that's not what brings me the happiness. What brings me the joy is the process of building something with legendary people. And what's so crazy is when you have a bunch of people working and aligning with that same vision, it's like we're all rowing at the same time. You're able to move so much faster and more effectively, and you can do so much more work and impact because you're all moving in that direction. And this is where that, I call it like a magnetic vortex. People see that and they want that. And so they don't even care necessarily like what the product is or what the compensation plan is or what the policies and procedures say, even though all those things are important. It's more of like we as human beings want to be in culture and community with others.
Mhm.
And so you start to attract people to that. And they say, huh, Scottie Hobbs is doing this. If he's doing this, I don't even need to know all the details. I just know it's worth looking at.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the opportunity's for me, but if he's doing this because of who he is and what he represents and the quality of person that he is, just by process of like of attraction, I need to at least look at what he's doing because I'm inspired, and I would say that Scottie is aspirational. I aspire to do and be like Scottie, so I need to know what he's doing and how he did it. And then the fastest way to get there, Scottie, is a mentor. Tony Robbins taught that to me. He said, "You want to shortcut your to success? You want a shortcut? Here it is. Find a mentor. Find a mentor that has what you want and do what they do." I had somebody the other day come to me and they're like, "I want to do real estate." I was like, "What kind of real estate?" "Commercial real estate." "Great. You need to talk to this person, this person, and this person." They're like, "Why can't I talk to you?" Because I'm like, that's not my area of expertise. I would go find somebody that is the absolute best at that, and that person can cut 10 years off your life by helping you to expedite the thing that it is that you want. The other thing that can happen is if you go spend time with that person, you can quickly realize whether or not you want that or not in your life. Because you might think that it's attractive or you might think you want to do that. Go spend time with somebody doing it. And that's what I encourage all the young people. They say, well, why did you turn down medical school? I did a 200-hour internship, Scottie, with 4 different medical groups. I shadowed these doctors. I like literally was attached to their hip for 7 days. And then I went to the next doctor and the next doctor and the next doctor. I went with a ophthalmologist, gastroenterologist. I went with orthopedic surgeons. I shadowed these doctors because I wanted to see what does your life look like every day from when you wake up to when you go to bed. I want to see how much time do you get with your wife and with your kids. What does it look like in a hospital? What does it look like in an independent practice, a group practice? I need to see it all. And I got to the end of the internship and I go, I don't want to be a doctor. I do not want to be a doctor. And I was like, how valuable was that time spent? I mean, how terrible would it have been if I spent 12 years going to med school and then I got to the end of it? I'm like, well, I guess now I don't have a choice. I have to be a doctor.
Mhm.
No, 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 no. That's not the way to do it. That's called sunk cost. It's like you put too much into it, so you stick with it because you think you've already put too much time and money into it. No, 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 no. Figure out what it is that you want. Find a mentor, do what they do. And so I'll tell you right now, I started studying the best of the best in this industry of direct sales. And I started doing what they were doing and I started rubbing shoulders with them such that like one day I felt like I was like, I don't want to say equal, but like we were colleagues. Like it's like we were masterminding together. Whereas before, I was just the mentee. You know what I mean? I was just soaking it up, soaking up their wisdom, figuring out what I could do and how I could do it better. And so that's one of the things I love about you, Scotty, is like you just have this humility about you, a teachable spirit. It's like the most attractive quality a human being can have. Confidence mixed with humility. You know what I'm saying? It's like some people are arrogant. It's like a person that is extremely confident but humble, I feel like is the uh, greatest combination for success. I know Tony Robbins is doing a mastermind right now called Zenith Mastermind or something like that. I was talking to a couple of my friends that are in the mastermind. I said, "How much does that thing cost?" They said, $250,000 for the year, 250 grand. And I said, "Okay." And I said, the money's one thing, but you know what I appreciate about all these guys? They're all investing in their growth. They just keep growing. Doesn't matter how much money they've made, doesn't matter what their net worth is. They don't ever stop growing. They just keep investing. And what's crazy is as you become more successful and more financially astute, you have more resources to then be able to invest in higher levels of coaching, higher levels of mentorship. And then you get people like Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi and Russell Brunson and these guys that can like help you fast track to success. So this is my long-winded way of saying I have been on a personal growth journey now for 18 years. And it feels like every day I learn how much I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Every day I open my eyes to what I don't know, and it increases the need for putting myself around quality people like yourself so that I can continue to grow myself and continue to be growing so that I can be of more value to those that I'm with. And that's the process.
That's beautiful. As you were sharing that, I was thinking about the reason I'm doing this podcast. Like, I want you that's listening to this to understand what it takes to be successful, the habits, the mindset, the work that it will take. But it's part selfish in a way of I'm like, hey, if I interview the top earners in this industry, I get to put myself in a conversation with them. Like, I'm just volunteering myself into a 1 hour conversation. So I'm just so excited about this to just learn from you and learn from others.
Well,
So
I
I have a question for you. I got a question. So some people have like, okay, this sounds awesome. Like, I want to be on a path like Jordan's on. And I'm willing to put in 5, 10, 18 years and have this beautiful life where I'm present with my newborn and my wife and my other child. What are some common misconceptions about this industry that might be holding them back from pulling that trigger?
Yeah, I think some people, well, let me say this first. Something we all deal with is fear. And I think sometimes people think that fear is going to go away. Like if I become a mighty enough warrior, I don't have to deal with fear. No, fear is something that you will always have, but I would encourage you to learn to dance with your fear. It's almost like, there it is. And rather than running from it, it's almost like I'm going to dance with fear now. It's almost like I've been here before, like Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. It's like the clock says there's only 1 minute left. He's got 96-yard drive. It's like he's got some of the greatest D tackles and linebackers on the opposite side of the ball. It's like, yeah, I'm sure he was fearful of the situation, but it's like, I've been here before. There's no guarantees, but I know how to handle this situation. It's almost like there's been so much repetition in his life that like now he revels and he's like, there is no one more qualified to be in this position than me. I am ready for this moment. And it's almost like I am excited for this opportunity to grow and to stretch myself and to show myself and others what I'm capable of doing in this moment. And, you know, if I was encouraging the person that's thinking about this, it's like, well, what are the fears that people have? Rejection. I don't want to be salesy. I want people to like me. I want to be enough. I want to be loved. I mean, if I sold that thing, what would people think of me? Or if I joined that thing, it was structured this way, like, for 18 years, I've dealt with people thinking, oh, is it one of those pyramid things? It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like all the normal stuff. And whereas early in my career, I'd get like a little bit like defensive if somebody said that. Now I'm like, no, there's just a lack of understanding. Maybe their mom did Mary Kay or Herbalife when they were young and they just got like a faulty vision for what the thing actually is.
Mhm.
I don't feel like it's my job to like constantly correct. I would think of myself as my job is to educate and inform. My job is to share information. So here's what I mean by that. I'm just going to use John Smith. If John Smith and I are having a conversation, if I use the arts of persuasion and all of that stuff to try to get John Smith to join my team, but John Smith doesn't really want to be on my team, is that going to be like a very synergistic relationship? Is that going to be fruitful long term? No. My goal is never to like persuade somebody against their will or position my words in a particular way that makes it seem better than it is. I would rather shoot people straight and give them the honest truth. Here's all the details that you need to know about the products, the company, the opportunity. It's like I want them to know what they're signing up for so that they have all of the information to make an educated decision. Now, that doesn't mean that there might be some fear that creeps in, but there's a difference between somebody wanting to do it and somebody not wanting to do it. You follow me?
Mhm.
And so I think I would take a ounce of desire over a pound of talent any day because I'm looking for people that want to be successful, want to grow, and I can coach them on what they need to know and the practical and tactical things that they need to do to be successful. But what I can't teach is desire. I can't. You look at these feats of athleticism, like the Olympics or the World Cup or the Super Bowl or the US Open, which is going on right now. And we're always in awe of these athletes. Why are we in awe of these athletes? I'll tell you right now, I had the privilege of becoming very close with a professional tennis player. In fact, she was a part of my first organization. So I traveled to all the Grand Slam tournaments with her. And I remember very specifically being at one tournament and it was just her and she was practicing and she was warming up for the tournament. Now, mind you, this girl played in 23 straight Wimbledons. She was number one in the world for 199 weeks. And I remember we showed up at the practice. There wasn't anybody in the facility. It was just her and her coach. And I remember, if you know anything about tennis, when the ball's hit at you, if you hit it straight back, that's a little bit easier than if you try to then turn the ball to cross court. So if you change the direction of the ball, it becomes a more challenging shot. So her coach said, I want you to hit a cross court shot. So he took a cylinder of balls. He put it 6 inches from the line, 6 inches from the line. And he started smoking these balls at her. And I watched her 25 in a row. She just took the ball, hit it cross court, and she landed the ball in between this canister of balls and the line, which was like a 6-inch gap. I watched her do it 25 times in a row.
Wow.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I'm in awe because this is what success is. This is people are working behind the scenes. Nobody is clapping for her. Nobody's applauding her. Nobody's like, wow, you're so amazing. Like that right there in and of itself, like deserves 10 million views on YouTube. Like I'm just telling you, this was just a practice.
Mm-hmm.
So then when she steps into the game, is it a surprise that she hits that shot? No, not a surprise to me because I've watched how much she practiced. I watched what she did when nobody was watching. And I think this is the challenge is we live in this culture where we want all of the glory. We want the big bank account, but we're not willing to do the things in the shadows that are necessary to being successful. And this is why they say 2% of real estate agents are successful. This is why the 2% rule exists. The average person is not willing to do what is necessary to be successful. So when people look at network marketing or direct sales, they just Google the statistics and they're like, well, statistically, most people fail, or statistically, most people make X dollars. That's the wrong question to ask. You know what I'm saying? The right question to ask is like, is this a feasible business opportunity? And am I willing to do the work necessary to being successful? And I think sometimes the best way to actually figure that out is to go and interview people that are involved in the business. Like, go figure it out. Go talk to some of the top leaders, talk to the owner, like, do your due diligence. But I'm not going to let statistics decide whether or not I can or can't be successful in something. And so all of those normal fears are there. And those are fears that we're going to have to overcome. But I can honestly say from doing this for 18 years and being successful in other businesses, I've never seen a business model more lucrative than what I've seen in the direct sales space. This channel, what I mean by that is using me as the example. I was underqualified. I had no money. I had a bachelor's degree, but I didn't have like an MBA or any postgraduate work. I had no sales experience, no business experience. Like if I tried to show up and get a job at most places, I was underqualified. You know what I mean? And I have some friends, you and I have both have some friends in the industry that like, I mean, take for example, Lindsay. I mean, she's got a ninth grade education. Like she's very underqualified in the world's terms. And I've watched these people build multi-million dollar businesses when the world would say you're underqualified. But the cool thing about direct sales is with very little money and very little experience, you can dip your toe into entrepreneurship. And if you're willing to do the work, you can really scale up and build a big business. But the problem is, human nature is we start something, and if we don't see the results fast enough, then we quit. And the truth is, we just didn't give it enough time. And all of us that are on a health journey, whether it's to gain muscle or lose weight, we all know this. You can't show up in the gym for just a couple of weeks and expect to see results. Anybody that looks fit or prioritizes wellness, you study them, they have these habits that they formed. It's a lifetime of habits. And so my encouragement would be, man, if you could prioritize the habits of being successful and you could apply those habits to a vehicle like direct sales with the appropriate products and opportunity at the right time, you could really build something special. So my encouragement would be this. 3 pieces of advice. Number one, the most important thing to look for when evaluating a company is the owner. Owner's number one. Leadership is everything. So find a company with an owner that you trust. If you don't trust the owner, don't join the company. Number two is find somebody that can mentor you into the business. They've actually seen the statistics. Did you know that somebody is or isn't successful in the industry? They actually say 85% of the people successful, it comes down to who your sponsor is. What does that mean? Who you choose to go into business with actually will influence your success more than anything. So align yourself with somebody in the business that actually is doing the business. And then the last piece of advice I'd give you is if you're not willing to put at least 4 years into the business, don't start. Don't start. 4 years is the minimum amount of time to like gain the skills and actually give it the time that it needs to actually showcase something beautiful. But the cool part about a business like that we have, you can build a legacy business, a generational business that cash flows and creates residual income. Years from now, you can pass it down to your kids and you can really build something generational. And so if you're asking yourself like, well, this business feels harder than what I'm currently doing. Well, ask yourself the question, with what you're currently doing, could you pass that down to your kids? Like, is it generational? I'm willing to do something that's a little bit harder that has a higher upside. So the upside to me is the freedom that comes with the business model and then the capacity to one day pass it down to my children. That's pretty valuable. I'll spend the time and energy necessary to building that. And I think that's part of the reason we've done what we've done.
That's beautiful. A business that you can build a legacy, pass it down to your kids. Man, I'm going to ask you one last question, Jordan, before we end this out. I've learned so much from you today. I'm excited. Well, I feel honored to be a part of your team and build with you. My question to you is, what are you most proud of in your life?
Man, when it all comes to the end, dude, I know that I'm going to stand before God. And my parents won't be there. My siblings won't be there. My wife won't be there. What I mean is, they won't be there when I stand before God and I have to make an account for my life. Um, I know that, like, we all as humans, we need grace, and thank God for what Jesus did for all of us on the cross. But I'm still going to have to make an account for the way I lived my life. And so as I start thinking about my choices, 40 is an interesting year. I don't necessarily think it's the halfway point in my life, but I do think it's an interesting year in that you really kind of step into full adulthood and you start to evaluate things at age 40. You just see the world a little differently than you did in your 20s and your 30s. And you start to kind of figure out, like, what is valuable to me? What is worthwhile to me? And the older I get, the more I feel like I want to spend time with Jesus. I want to spend time with him. And so as I spend time with him, I hear his voice more clearly. And as I hear his voice more clearly, I feel like I disconnect myself from what the world says I should or shouldn't be doing. And so I feel like what I'm most proud of is I've walked with Jesus for almost my entire life. There hasn't really been a prodigal son moment where I like walked away from my faith and then came back. Certainly, there's been moments where they've been lower than others, and we've gone through our own sets of adversity too. But like, I feel like for the most part, since I was young, I figured out what life is about, and life to me is about walking with the Lord. And Jesus is the gateway to God. And people are like, well, that sounds awfully religious, or the do's and don'ts. And it's like, no, you're not seeing it correctly. When you do things God's way, life is actually better. You avoid a lot of the pitfalls that come with life. I mean, think of it like smoking. It's like, when your parents told you not to smoke a cigarette, it's not because they were trying to steal your fun. It's because they knew the ramifications of cigarettes long term and what that would do to your health, right? And so I've actually learned that, like, reading the Bible and trying to do things God's way and trying to learn more about Jesus so that I can emulate him in my day-to-day life, it actually makes my life better. It puts me in a position to where I have that deep sense of joy and peace. And so if you're somebody listening to this and you're like, man, I feel anxious, I feel depressed, I feel overwhelmed, man, give yourself some grace. Don't beat yourself up. Guilt, shame, and condemnation are not the answer. What you need is, you need a relationship with your creator. And I just want you to know that Jesus loves you. He absolutely loves you. And quite frankly, if you were the only person on earth, he would have come to die just for you. And when you start to understand who you are and your identity in Christ, then the opinions of man start to mean less in your life. And you start to get fixated on what matters most. And I want to encourage all of you that that's what gives me peace. I would say peace is the new profit today. It is. Peace is the new profit, not Bitcoin, not cash, peace. Peace is the new profit. And if we can all achieve more peace in our lives, man, that slowness that you alluded to earlier, Scottie, it's like, that's because you feel peace. That's what I want. I want more peace in my life. That's what I pursue. I pursue peace. So is this business going to bring more peace? Is this relationship going to bring more peace? Those are the questions I ask. Because if it's going to invite more chaos into my life or stress, no, it's not what I want. The filter for me today is peace. Peace is the new filter. And so I chase peace, I want peace, and I want to bring peace to others. And I think that that's only possible when you know who you are and whose you are. And so I hope that encourages your listeners today, Scottie, that, like, the thing that I'm most proud of is that I walk with Jesus every day. And I couldn't be more proud to be his son.
What a beautiful way to end that, Jordan. I appreciate this conversation today more than you can imagine. And thank you for spending that time with us. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation we shared with you today. We're here to remind you that your family is your most important work on earth, help you feel better, and learn how to earn more income for your family. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review, clip what you like, or share it with a friend. My friend, it's time to level up.